Friday, February 12th, and I have special guest astrologer Susan Grace here today. Super excited. Thank you for being here, Susan.
Yeah, me too.
We had a little time snafu, which I think is actually pretty freaking funny because that never happens to me because I'm so insanely fastidious about that sort of thing. I'm always like, it's EST, it's EST. And then I'm always calculating all the things. And this time I didn't do that at all. I just assumed everybody knew what was in my brain. But we're here, so it's
We're
good.
here. And Mercury retrograde, I think we need a lot of forgiveness on this kind of stuff. It's just, this one's really packed up. So,
Yeah, like
mhm.
I don't think I've ever felt so impacted by a retrograde in like it, but it feels different too. It's like less, I don't know, less stabby and just more like everything's changing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like trippy. It's kind of trippy, and you just keep like going through it, going, are we through it yet? Nope. Nope. Still not through it yet. Let's
Just
keep
do
going.
keep going. Just keep swimming.
Yeah. We have 8 more days, in case you're wondering. 8 more days.
Well, and so much can happen in 8 days, so holy moly.
Yeah.
Well, then that sounds fun. Well, so I wanted to talk about something like fun and lighthearted with you today, as opposed to like, ooh, it's the end of the world again. Woohoo! Um, but I mean, like, and we can still. But I had people, if they wanted to calculate their Venus sign so they could throw them through here. But when I was talking to Susan about doing this live today, I was saying, oh, we'll talk about people's signs and how they relate together in love and relationship. And she was like, not sun signs, Venus signs. So tell me kind of about that, like why Venus signs and not sun signs.
When you go into relating with other people, especially if we're talking about like love, then you go through Venus. Venus is a receiver. Venus opens up and lets things in. So when you love, your heart opens up in a particular way to let things in, and therefore that's the way you give it out too. Mars is what you're attracted to. That's more like drive. Juno marks like what will make you want to like do a long-term commitment with someone. Those are different than your sun sign. So if you look at just your sun sign, you're not getting to the mark. Like you're not getting to how do you actually love, right? Like, so for instance, you have a lot of Scorpio and a lot of Sagittarius, but your Venus is in Virgo. The way that you so the way that you love, it's not like at all like your sun and the stuff you've got in Sagittarius at all. And
No.
so you have to know your Venus to be like, oh, this is actually my love language. This is how I express it. This is how I let it in. Because if somebody just goes after your Scorpio, they're not getting it.
No.
They're not getting it. I mean, they have to know your Scorpio, of course, but that doesn't get all the way into like the heart of it.
It's very confusing for people who try to love me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like all the rest of me is nothing like this part.
Yeah, so like super intense Scorpio, right? But if someone comes in and puts a note on your desk and says, "Here's your schedule for the day," you'd be like, oh, "He loves me."
You're thinking of me.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise, you're like being all like, doing like witchy stuff, and then you put a note on the fridge and say, "Dinner's at 7. Here's what we're having," and they go, oh, "Okay, she loves me."
Yeah. And if
That
you're
kind of
late,
stuff.
I'll kill you.
Don't be late. I'll kill you. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting because I think for a lot of us, just like looking at, the three major signs that we look at, which is the sun, the moon, and the rising, it's so easy to forget about, other planets that are corresponding to those different things. So, what would you say, like, what is yours?
Mine's Sagittarius.
Ooh.
Yeah. So unlike you, we both have a lot of Scorpio, but my Venus is in Sagittarius. So I'm super like intense. You know how it is to be a Scorpio. Um, but in love, if it's not fun, I'm not really interested in it. No, thank you. If you just get to my Scorpio, it's just intense all the time, you'll wear me out. Mm-mm. But put me on a plane and give me a break from being a Scorpio. Oh, feel so much better.
Hmm.
Expecting to be in my Scorpio all the time, I live there all the time. I need a break. So that I go to relationships to get some relief.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so Matt is saying Matt is also Venus in Sagittarius. So, like, let's say if your Venus is in Sagittarius, for example, what would be a Venus that goes well with a Sagittarius? You know what I'm saying? Like the partner.
Yeah. Maybe Gemini, maybe, because it's its opposite sign. And so I think that opposite signs balance each other out, but you'd have to understand each other. Like Sagittarius Venus would look at a Gemini Venus and be like, that's interesting, because Venus and in Gemini is kind of like all over the place and is real chatty. And so Venus and Sagittarius would sit back and be like, what is this person actually trying to say? Okay. And then the other way around is the Venus and Gemini person would be like, beep, 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 beep. And then watching Sagittarius like go for meaning, then the Venus and Gemini would be like, I wonder how you got to that, and start to break it down on what kind of information got there. Right. I don't know that Venus in like the serious ones, like Venus in Capricorn, Venus in Virgo, Venus in maybe Venus in Taurus, but Capricorn and Virgo, they're so serious and practical that Venus and Sagittarius would be like, oh God, because Venus and Capricorn and Venus in Virgo wants to work on things. They're serious about it, right? So when they're like, we need to work on our relationship, Venus and Sagittarius would be like, oh my God, I'm going to be over here doing not that. No.
Ew.
Ew. If we have to work on it, why are we here?
I feel like I've said this too. It shouldn't be so hard.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God, we have so many different Venuses here. Okay. Do you want to like kind of like quickly run down through some of them?
Sure. I can go. You want to do all 12?
Yeah, let's do all 12 and then we wouldn't miss anyone.
Okay. So we'll start with Aries.
Okay. Hello, Aries.
Okay. Venus in Aries is like very forward and spontaneous and kind of in your face, right? And so I was thinking about Venus in Aries earlier this morning. It would be like, a Venus in Aries would be like, can I get your number? And the person's like, you're going into surgery and I'm your surgeon. No. Like, what are you talking about?
So inappropriate.
What are you doing? So it's going to be like that. Okay. They're really into it all of a sudden.
No matter what's happening.
Yeah, no matter what's happening. Okay, Venus in Taurus. Venus in Taurus is super romantic, and they're going to go for the best in things, no matter what their resources are. So like if they want to get you a blanket, right, and resources are limited, they'll go to Target and feel every blanket and make sure they get the softest one, right? If they're going to make you dinner, they're not going to make you a hamburger. They're going to make you a souffle. It's going to be like the best and really romantic. And it's a slow burn too. They're not in a hurry, because Taurus like takes its time. So high quality, slow burn. Gemini, I was just talking about Gemini. Gemini falls in love with best friends and they feel like best friends. Venus in Gemini. Okay. So it's like beep, 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 beep. Now when I read for people who only have Venus in Gemini and the rest of their stuff is elsewhere, usually their picker is broken. So I have to talk to them about because they're like, I don't know what's going on with me. And I'm like, well, it's because you have Venus in Gemini. And really it should be best friends. So they start falling in love with best friends. They're like, yeah, but it just feels like a best friend. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. They're like, oh, okay. And then they go on with it. They didn't realize that the best friend thing is actually what they need. Fourth house, Cancer, like Taurus, it's into food too. But Cancer is going to make you like a pot pie. It's not going to make you a souffle. It's going to make you something comforting. They probably learned it from their mother. Okay. And you're going to be on the couch under a blanket watching Netflix. That's what it's going to be.
Netflix and chill.
That's right. But it's literally going to be chill. It's not code for something.
We're watching this and don't interrupt. I want to know.
We're actually going to watch this movie. Yeah.
That's Venus in Cancer.
That's Venus in Cancer. Yeah.
Okay.
Leo is demonstrative in how they love. Venus and Leo is demonstrative. So like my son is Venus and Leo. He says I love you like 25 times a day. Like it's all the time. He watches like Chopped on like cooking shows competitions with me, and he'll have his favorite and he'll be like, Chef Ann, I love you. And I'm like,
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
very demonstrative, very on display. Okay. Now, as far as like adults are concerned, like if they're going to send you like flowers to your office, right? It's going to be the really big flowers because they want to show you, but also they get lots of attention for being the one who sent that. Like, oh, your boyfriend's amazing. He's like, I know, right?
How Leo.
Right. Venus in Virgo. This is you. Okay. It's the fixer. It's the one that shows up. It's like writing a list for people. It's being like, here's how you get your shit straight. Okay. And that's how you express love. If it's like, if I was dating a Venus and Leo guy, he would come over and he'd be like, I got a surprise for you. And he would switch out all of my light bulbs that have gone out. And I'd be like, oh, that's so nice. You must really be into me. Wow. Very like practical and showing up in everyday life.
Interesting.
Yeah. Venus and Libra, totally like into rom-com way to go about this. They want the lovely story. They want everyone to look lovely. They want a beginning, middle, and end. They want to be asked out on a date. They want to have a first kiss. They want to happily ever after and all that stuff. And so if you're not into that, right, they're showing up in that way and you're not, then they easily will feel like they're being taken advantage of. So watch it. If you're not into that, don't engage with them. If you're like, I'm all about the story, then good. Go be with the Venus and Libra. If you're not into it, let it go, because they'll get pissy when you let them down.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the thing about Libra is they get along and they go along until they don't.
Like, oh, no, they really, really don't.
Right. Let's see. Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio is obsessive. Now, if you're not also a sun in Scorpio, you may not know that about this person. So someone who's like a Capricorn and Aquarius, but they got a Venus in Scorpio, like you can't tell from the outside, but in the background, they're feeling like, if you're not stalking me, you're not into me yet. And it's like, oh shit. And then because they're definitely stalking you. They've looked at all your pages, they looked at your friend list, they can see you commenting on all the photos. You better know they're looking. They are looking for sure. Okay. They're like really into it, but you may not know. Very loyal. The two most loyal signs we've got for in general, but especially Venus about love is Scorpio and Taurus, that axis. Loyal almost to a fault. Very loyal. Sagittarius, we just talked about. Philosophical play, airplanes, that kind of stuff. If it's not fun, not really interested. Capricorn, Venus and Capricorn will watch something like a relationship for a while and be monitoring it to see if it's going to last. If it's not going to last, they're out. So they can come across as being like anti-commitment, like have a hard time committing, but that's not what's happening. It's just they're excellence driven. And if it's not going to work, then they're not into it.
Interesting.
Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius is into weird things. They're into like seriously public displays of affection where it's like, here, yeah, here. Mm-hmm. They love it that you've got pet rats. They love it. And if they've got pet rats, you better love it or like forget it.
Oh my God.
And then Pisces falls in love with in karmic situation. This feels karmic and they fall in love with it.
Oh dear.
Yeah, which sounds amazing, except that they'll fall in love with the karma and then try and love you through suffering too. So it's karmic, but they're also an asshole. Well, it's because they were abused. Oh my God, they're still an asshole. Okay. I have to talk to Venus and Pisces people and be like, can we end this timeline, please? Please, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like they fall in love with suffering.
Ooh.
I know.
Like, damn.
Yeah. And so I have to kind of walk up to them slowly and be like, I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion. We don't have to do
cry.
this. We don't have to do this.
Oh my God.
That's all 12.
Wow. So, okay. For some reason, my mind is blanking, but like, I think that I am married to a Venus in Pisces. Or is he? I don't remember. But whatever it is, it's interesting because, oh my God, everybody's like going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and they're just like dying laughing over here. Because it's funny, because it's like it sounds like you. But I think because I am a Scorpio, I have that thing where I'm like, I want you to be obsessed with me.
Yes.
But if you show weakness and you're too obsessed, then I have to kill you. You're dead to me. So it's like that balance of like you need to be obsessed with me, but then like not too obsessed with me. You need to be your own person, unless I don't want you to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you want the practical version of obsession because you're Venus in Virgo.
Okay, thank you, Susan. That's a much better way of explaining myself than what I normally do.
Yeah, it's not that they're being too obsessed, it's they're not being practical. Like, this is enough. God.
Oh my God, I feel so seen and heard. Okay, I want the practical version of obsession.
Right.
That's
It needs to make sense. God.
So, so we have our Venus signs, and then obviously like there's like a million different combinations that either work or don't work with these different things. Um, but like let's say, okay, so let's just use me as an example. I'm Venus in Virgo.
Mhm.
Do I or does a person need to understand their partners or whoever they're seeing on this Valentine's holiday? Do they need to know their Venus and kind of move in that way of gift giving? Because I feel like a lot of us tend to default to what we like. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And kind of do that for our partner, and then we're kind of mad when they don't like it.
Hmm.
Kind of answer my question, but yeah.
Yeah. So like, so you're Venus in Virgo, right? If someone's going to take you on a date, which I'm aware of COVID, so don't actually do this, okay? But if you're gonna, in normal times, if you're gonna go out on a date, right?
In the before time.
Right. And someone's gonna take you on a private jet and go to the Ritz for dinner, and then they're gonna rent a limo and all that shit. Like, you'd be impressed, but you'd be like, how much is this? This is crazy.
Did you think this through?
I mean, do you have any money left? God.
And like, do you even pay attention to me? Have you noticed what I like and need in my life?
You know my lawnmower's broken, right?
Why didn't you fix it?
Just fix the lawnmower.
That makes a lot
Yeah.
of
It's knowing where they're coming from. Right? Like same thing with Leo. If you're with the Venus and Leo and they sent you like all the flowers, you'd be like, I have no room for these flowers. What are you doing? What are you doing?
That is so me. Or I'm like, oh my God, do I need to now cut these and put them in some fucking water? Are you kidding? I can't
Great.
So basically what you're saying, Susan, is it would behoove you in a relationship that you want to maintain to check out what your partner's Venus sign is so that you could maybe speak to them in their love language as opposed to yours.
Right. And then, and then let's be honest about your own Venus. Like, if you're going to be in a relationship and you want it to last, don't drop hints. Tell people what you like and what you want. Tell them. I remember like years ago, like when I was in my 20s, I was watching Dr. Phil, and there was a woman who was like, I just wish he would just do it. I don't want to have to tell him. And he's like, I've got news for you. Some people need a list. Just give them a list. Okay, just tell them what you want. God, just tell them. It's the same for everything. Right? Like, tell people what you're into.
It's well, okay. So I'm with you on that. And it's like a lifelong lesson, right? Because I know for myself and so many others I know, it's like that feeling of I want you to intuitively
Oh God.
figure out what it is I want and do it. If I have to tell you, then it cancels it out entirely. And it's not constructive in any relationship, friendships or romantic. But I see us doing this like a lot. And I've said to people, like, you're going to need to use your words because it's been 15 years. He doesn't know.
Right.
He doesn't
actually
know.
doesn't. He actually doesn't know.
He literally doesn't know.
Right.
Tell
Right.
him.
And I think that might be a male female thing because women, just because of the way that we operate and also the society we live in, we're well versed in feeling things out and being like, I think I understand. Like that's what we do. We feel it, we intuit it, we connect in a heart level. Men aren't used to that. Either they're not used to it or they're not built that way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. It's just, for the most part, it doesn't happen that way. So just tell them, God,
Yeah.
put both of you out of your misery.
Exactly. Unless you like it. Because have you read that book, Existential Kink?
No.
Oh man, you should look it up. It's one of those books where it's like, read half of it and then it kind of repeats itself. But the premise is that we get off on some situations that are not pleasant and we actively seek out ways to prolong those situations because we actually secretly like it. So, people who are constantly complaining about a situation but never do anything to change it, it's like, well, I actually kind of like complaining about it. I love complaining about these things. And so, what the book is basically trying to say is that when you allow yourself to have the forbidden fruit, which is whatever that kink is, that is not acceptable, then it becomes less glamorous and you can kind of move out of that cycle. But I feel like, maybe not today in my current life, but in the one yesterday, I did kind of enjoy conflict in romantic relationships because I felt like conflict like that showed me, and I'm probably like exposing my dysfunctions here, but it showed me how much you cared. If we could like really kind of fight about things and like you got really like passionate. So it's kind of like me like needling to kind of get that passion where I don't do that as much anymore, but it was definitely something.
Yeah. I was looking to see if you have this in your chart and you don't. So you and I can have a conversation about this privately about where that comes from. But that's something that, I mean, if you're just interested, that's something that both Venus and Mars and Aries people do, is they think that fighting is flirting. Like, no, this means I'm into you. Like, oh my God, wow.
I like you so much. Let's bring the fire.
Yeah, let's argue.
Here's something I noticed that's going to make you upset.
Yeah.
Let's engage.
Right. Yeah.
It's so interesting.
And then, wow, you're still here. Awesome. Wow.
You must love me.
That might be your, you have Venus and Mars and Virgo. It might be what you're doing is to see if they're going to stay.
Yes, and so that is a thing too. It's like how far can I push you to improve your loyalty to me?
Like, wow, you're still here. All right.
You must really love me, or you have a lot of problems, and I fit perfectly into it.
Yes, my Scorpio is into both of those.
I love it. Well, okay, so how does it feel? Like I'm living this, and I think you are too, to kind of have, well, no, sort of. So I have basically no earth signs in my chart except for my Mars and Venus. And, when I think about that abstractly, it feels like two very interesting places to anchor me down because it's love and war, right?
Oh, whoa. Yeah, it can be. Uh-huh.
It is now.
Yeah.
That's how I've decided to see it. But when we look at people's charts and stuff, or when you look at them, and you see that a person's predominantly like, one or two elements, and then they don't have any grounding or maybe no water, like, you know what I mean? Like a lack of balance of the elements in their chart. Does the places where they anchor into a different sign that's out of the usual for them, does that make a bigger impact or feel like a conflict?
It doesn't feel like a conflict. It's relief. So I have a lot of water, and I also have some fire, a little bit of air. but I have zero planets in Earth, zero. And
Zero.
so it's, yeah. So it's, the way that feels is sometimes, sometimes it feels dense and difficult to be incarnated, like physicality, Earth kind of stuff feels like heavy, but I also have to go there to get balanced out. So like, so I intentionally go into Taurus. Like I'm really into cooking. Cooking is my meditation. It's like getting into food, right? And like Capricorn, when I make like really big decisions, if I'm the boss of my own life, I feel better. And then, you know, Virgo is the list kind of things. You intentionally go into those signs, but they're not easy to get into. So like if you have a whole lot of earth and you don't have any water, you probably need to like figure out how to feel. And figuring out how to feel might be like getting yourself in water. It wouldn't be, and now I'm going to cry. Like if you have a lot of water, you can cry on a dime, boom, right? But if you're an earth sign, you'd have to get yourself in water and be determined to get your emotions out. You have to be determined because you need to be balanced. Life is getting too heavy.
Ooh,
Makes sense?
yes. It's actually fascinating because I have never thought of it this way, where you actively choose things that the sign you're trying to have more of would be into, which is, I think, is what you're saying. Like you're saying you choose a Taurus like activity because it's grounding and you
Yeah.
need that grounding. And I would never have thought of it that way. Like, you know, if I'm feeling especially in my Scorpio, maybe that means I need to kind of get some grounding, get some, you know, do
Yeah,
some,
you need to go to Taurus. You need to get your feet in the grass.
yeah, yeah.
Same thing for houses, like clear houses. You can do whatever you want in those houses, but you have to intentionally go there. So like I'm a first house sun. I mean this affectionately because I like myself, okay? But this is what happens with first house suns. First house suns, well, they own their own life and they're independent, that kind of stuff. But they can also be like, how is this about me? And it's like, not everything is. God, calm down. Right. And so first house sun people can like kind of implode on themselves because everything is oriented in the first house. So I do much better whenever I'm in relationships, seventh house, because I have a mirror. I have something to bounce off of. I'm thinking about somebody besides my damn self all the time. So you can go into other houses to get relief, soft place to land, balance out, those kinds of things. But you have to intentionally go there.
Yeah, and this is that self-awareness and feeling like you have that understanding of who you are and what you need at different points in time. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's, I think we're, because one of the things that is involved with Aquarius is astrology. I think we're getting into a time when it's going to become commonplace that everyone needs to know their chart. Everyone. I mean, like when you're 10, start looking at your chart. And it is, we make life harder than it has to be when we don't know how we operate. And so if you're doing what you're supposed to do, or if you're following somebody else's model, or if you're trying to get acceptance, if you're people pleasing and you don't operate in those ways in the first place and you're forcing everything, you're making it way harder than it has to be. If you're like, I'm just not into that, then you can move on and go towards like what's actually calling you, where your actual work is, that kind of stuff.
yeah, that makes so much sense. And kind of like in many Indian cultures, it's part of just being alive is you have your Vedic astrologer and you get your
Mhm.
birth chart. And before you get married, they take the birth charts, they put them together, make sure you're compatible and kind of bringing that in. Well, I mean, people like you have been doing this and bringing it into the mainstream because, you know, I've been working with you for, I think, 3 years now,
Mhm.
3 years. And I have, you know, in that time, you'd think I would have retained more information, but, you know, we do. We do. That's why I keep coming back, Susan. I forgot it all. But that's not true. But, you know, having you as a person to say, like, okay, this is what's happening astrologically, and this is how it's affecting you personally, has been a huge eye opener for me and has helped me navigate things because I don't feel so like I'm a spinning top in the middle of nothingness. It's like there's something happening and it's happening for a reason. And yeah, sometimes it's really uncomfortable because we're growing and learning things, but knowing what my path looks like in some way and what I'm better at, not so great at, what I like, what I don't like, it just makes so much sense and helps me to kind of have that roadmap of my life that otherwise I would have no freaking clue. Like, ah,
Yeah, and it really helps a lot to know that life is not picking on you. Okay? Like this is the intent. Everyone goes through it at some point in their life. Here's the exact years it's going to happen. It'll be over at this point, which is sometimes frustrating because people be like, "Am I done yet?" I'm like, "Nope." They're like, "Come on."
12 more years.
I mean, I can't tell that it's the Pluto square Pluto kind of stuff. When people are like, "Isn't this over?" I'm like, "Nope, nope. You got a few more years yet." And they're like, "I think I'm done." I'm like, "All right." And they come back and they're like, "I'm not done." Wow,
Not
it's
even
still here.
I'm still here.
But at least you can work with it. And I think it's really important to understand that every single transit is in your favor. Every transit, even the Pluto ones.
Mm,
No matter how challenging, it's trying to get you exalted. It's trying to heal you. It's on purpose. It's by design.
mhm.
And same with your natal chart. The way that you were created is the way you were meant to be created. Don't wish yourself away. Don't fight it. This is how you are. And it's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. And kind of tying that back into relationships, it just has me thinking, like, so often we have this idea of what our partner should be like, and
Hmm.
we just have an idea of it. But how amazing would it be if instead of wanting someone to be a certain way, we respected them for how they are and how they can complement us, and know that, like, somebody who is very different from us could be that counterbalance that brings, that state, that what is that word? Well, balance, bring that balance into your life, and they don't have to be like you, and you don't have to be like them. You can kind of retain your individuality while complementing each other.
Sure. So like people who have very different charts that you wouldn't think naturally go together, but in real life, they're really into each other. I tell them just treat each other with a high degree of curiosity.
Mm,
Like, that's interesting. Hmm. Right? Like they're an exotic animal. Like, ooh, I'm gonna watch that. What's going on there?
you're like on safari and you're observing.
Right. What is happening with that lawnmower? Wow.
How do you get up every morning and make the bed? Wow,
Every day.
every day.
But the opposite is true too. Like if you can get really mature about knowing how you operate and knowing what you want in relationships and be once you get I mean when you do relationships long enough, you get kind of sick of the drama. And like I don't want any more drama, okay? If you get to that point, then when you start meeting people, you can look at their charts right away and look for things that you know are a deal breaker.
Mm,
You that you know they are. And then you can gracefully go, "Mm, not into it." Now that takes a lot of maturity
yeah.
because we fall in love with the idea of people. Sometimes we fall in love with projects. Maybe I can talk them out of being their chart. Like good luck with that. You can't, but you can try. You can try. And then eventually over time you start going, I know for a fact this shit ain't gonna work. It's just not. And one of the great benefits that I found over time is after relationships fall away, I look at their chart again when I'm not in rose colored glasses. I look at it again. I'm like, yep, that. Next time I see that, I'm not doing it.
Ooh, this sounds like a fun project. Like,
It is.
like go get all your ex's birth information.
Yes.
Do this. We like, texting their mom, be like, oh hey, just when was he born? When was he born? I'm not gonna.
Man, I can't tell you how many people have tried to figure out how to find a birth time without asking. And I don't know of a way yet, unless you're going to assist them with getting a passport and you would need their birth certificate to do it. That's the only thing I can think of. You want me to help you get a passport? I just need your birth certificate.
And,
That's the only thing I can think of.
and that's like really wildly specific to find out. There has to be some other way that, like, it's kind of, well, depending on how you ended things, right, with the relationship, but like, oh, you know, I can look up your chart for you for your own benefit. I'm an astrology witch now. Do you want this? And maybe they would want it. I don't know.
there's also there are astrologers who can figure out a birth time based on like the way that they behave or the way that they look, or how introverted or extroverted they are. There's ways to do it. I just don't know how. But other people, there's ways to do it. You can figure out a birth time.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to just like run it through a calculator, right?
No, you'd have
No.
to talk to someone and describe how they were, like, again, if they're outward or inward, if they their confidence, like you'd have to look at all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think that they look at like physical features too.
Oh wow. Okay, that's really in depth. So yeah, so basically, just for everybody listening, as you move into new relationships, just make sure to get that information on the front end, so you don't have to do the sleuthing on the back end. But yeah, I mean, that would if we did that, like you know how some people go, I think in the Catholic religion, you go and you take some sort of marriage classes or something like that, where you talk about being married, or I don't know. I don't really know what they do, but I've heard about it. I'm
Mhm.
thinking like how beneficial would that be if instead of that we did the birth charts and actually like looked at strengths and weaknesses, because you know you and I did not for relationship but just for like business stuff with me and my business partner, and that was so helpful to figure out the best way of communication for us. And when things are tense, what do we do? I specifically remember you saying, make lists. Like just whenever there's a tough spot, just make a freaking list and like, you know, put it all out there on there. And that advice was so helpful because everybody's different and they have different styles. But if you both want to make something work, and you have that understanding, then you then have the tools. So having a reading with you and doing that chart comparison, even if it's not a romantic relationship, I think is really amazing and important.
I appreciate that. And I mean, I really commend the people like you who are starting to be proactive in figuring out like their business relationships, their children, potential relationships. People are being proactive about that and trying to see like how does this function and how can I make it the best it can be. I think that's going to become more and more and more commonplace. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like rapidly so. I that thing about birth times, just in the last, I don't know, probably 3 years, I've noticed that because I read for a lot of women. I do have a good amount of men, but it's mostly women. I think in the last few years, it's been like men are like, "What the fuck are you asking me for my birth time for?" But recently, it's been like, "Yeah, here you go. Tell me what she says."
There's so many memes.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, guys, if she asks for your birth time, run.
Yeah. Yeah, and if someone's gonna run when you ask for their birth time, that's a flag. If you're really into this stuff and you want to figure out how relationships function, and they're like, "No, thank you." Okay, thank you for making that clear. Wow,
That's all I need to know.
that's all I need to know. Hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to. You know, Susan, it's funny because, and I'm not a sportsy person at all, but obviously I know who Tom Brady is. Um, I lived in Boston for a while, but I ran across this news article that was him talking after he won the Super Bowl recently, and he was saying about his wife and how she is a good witch and she makes these altars for him, and that he has stopped questioning her. He consults her before the season and before big games. She tells him, you know, take this crystal, do this thing, do that, da da da. And he's like, she's always right. I don't question her. I have my little mini altar that I bring with me to the games, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I read that and I said, yes, because what is now happening is which is mainstream. Because, you know, like love them or hate them, the two of them, you know, Giselle and Tom, they are right there in the spotlight. And for the two of them to basically say that, you know, Giselle's using witchcraft to have him win the Super Bowls is normalizing something that used to be completely like you don't ever talk about it. So I
Yeah,
was like, whoa, Aquarius energy.
totally. I mean, and it's coming out like in the highest parts of like institutions too. Like, was it? I can't remember who said it. I think it has to do with J.P. Morgan. Anyway, it's not that millionaires use astrology, billionaires do.
Yes.
And it used to be like common that the astrologer for like royal kingdoms was out front. It used to be that there was an office for the astrologer in the White House. Okay. And so that's going to come back up too. I happen to have a client who is direct friends with the astrologer for one of the parties at the federal level. I'm like, I knew it.
You know, it makes so much sense, Susan. And it also makes even more sense why it hasn't been, trickled down to the commoners, because, then we would know the secrets of doing all the things.
Right. Then we're like, oh, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
I see you. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
But I think all that is gonna start coming up from everywhere, commonplace, rapidly so.
I'm so here for that. I'm so here for that.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
So before we like kind of close up, I wanted to ask you one more question,
Sure.
because we just had kind of a rather large Aquarius event yesterday, the new moon and this stellium.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any insights about what this specific new moon means for us?
Yes. So it's a really big new moon because we had 6 planets and luminaries in Aquarius. So Aquarius is having a moment. It's saying, whoa, okay. And it's squaring into Taurus. Aquarius's ruler, Uranus, is in Taurus. Okay. And that's square, those are squaring. Uranus and Taurus is going to say, we're going to create new worlds. We're creating new worlds. But in order to do that, you have to get really honest with yourself in Aquarius about whether or not you're willing to evolve into your true resonance. Okay? How willing are you? Like if you've been doing the same thing all the time because everybody expects you to, but it does not resonate with you at all. Are you willing to get into true resonance so you can go up? Or is that too hard and you're going to stay where you are? I'm going to tell you that if you're going to stay where you are on traditions and rules and expectations and how it's always been done, you're going to have a real hard time because Pluto is breaking those down in Capricorn. So right now, it's about willingness. Are you willing to do what it takes to go up with how you vibrate, resonate? Because we're going to start creating a better way of being in the world and therefore solving the world's problems in ways that we've never seen before. But we can't do it from the old vibration. So like you can't solve a problem from the same vibration that it was created in, right? I think that was Einstein. You have to go to a different level in order to solve those problems. Now that doesn't mean we're going to fix everything and evolve into a new way of being by next Thursday. That's not what that means.
Why not?
Yeah. So Saturn and Uranus are going to square 2 more times this year, June and November.
Ooh.
Mars is going to keep going through the zodiac, obviously, without retrograding. So right now it's squaring into Aquarius. It's going to oppose when it gets to Leo. It's going to square again when we get into Scorpio. And then when we get into next year, the nodes are going to change. South node's going to go into Scorpio. North node's going to go into Taurus with Uranus. And that means that we're supposed to be diving into creating new worlds, solving problems, manifesting a better way of being. If you had been stuck in the old way and have been unwilling to change, you will be susceptible to falling into South Node and Scorpio, meaning it's going to feel like a pit.
Ooh.
A pit. Like, oh man, I do not want to be here. Yes, correct. You do not want to be there. So it's being really proactive now. Be proactive in whatever the future looks like. I want to be in it. That's good enough for right now. Whatever that is, I want to be in it. What does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know. Susan, it sounds good to me.
It sounds what?
It sounds good to me. Like, it feels like if we were to be given too much information at once, we would just mess it up, like you need just a little bit at a time. And this kind of what it sounds like to me is like, okay, you just need to flow and start to get really real about who are you and what do you actually want, and stop caring so much about what society has told you before that you should want and who you are. and it's breaking through that. And I think I know, a lot of people that I work with right now are doing that big work, and having seen that evolution in myself and with others around me for months and months and months and months, it does make me feel excited, because maybe like at some point last year I was like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel confident that with the people who are stepping up into this and doing this work, we're going to get where we want to get, and it's going to be awesome. So I don't feel super doom and gloom about it today.
Today, yeah.
So this is where I am today.
Yeah. So I just want to illustrate this a little bit further, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The way that I try to get people to wrap their heads around what I'm talking about is I give the example of the internet. If you went back 20 years and said to me, you're going to be in a world wide web talking about how the planets are going to evolve humanity and the universe itself, I'd be like, no, I don't want to be in a web that covers the world. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That would have scared the shit out of me. Okay. It's like that. You will not recognize the world you live in 1 year, 2.5 years, 24 years. You won't recognize it. So much evolution and growth and future forward kind of stuff. Mm. And so what the real future is repairing our humanness. Mm. So it's going to be things like now, because South Node's going to go into Scorpio, right? It's going to be things like, how long are you going to self-identify with your trauma? How long are you going to let that go? You're going to stay there? Is that who you are? I've been traumatized. 50 years later, you're still traumatized. Are you going to find the way to heal out of it and be whole? You can't. I mean, you can. Some people roll around and self-identify with their suffering, and they're deeply in love with it. Deeply in love with it.
It's their kink.
Right. Or do you want to be part of like what's next? If you're going to be part of what's next, then you've got work to do. And I'm not saying like people out there. I'm telling myself this too. I'm like, here's some things that you've got to find a way to shed this. You've got to find a way to shed this. Come on. It's in the way that you talk to yourself. It's in thinking that you need permission. It's in, doing what only the things that you have examples of. Like you can only do things that have a pattern, what everybody else does. Otherwise, you're not willing to create a new way because it's too scary. Why is that? Look at all of those things. What stops you from breaking from the pack and going your own way? What stops you? Your woundedness, your patterns, your family, your ancestry. What is it? Learning to find a way to evolve. If you want to do that. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to evolve into a new way, I'm telling you, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to not change. It's going to cost more energy to go, no, I'm staying right here. It's going to cost more energy to do that than to go, okay, all right.
Isn't that interesting?
It's like a river, Sarah. How much energy would it take for you to go, no, with like a raging river? You wouldn't make it.
No.
You wouldn't make it. It would take all of your energy and you would go under.
Yes. I'm just like laughing, Susan, because I used that exact same imagery in the new moon call last night about like, you can be a stone in the river, but that river's going to come smash against you and it's going to wear you down.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon came from a river. Okay? Like flow is powerful.
Yes.
You might as well go, all right. Okay. Let it all go.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Whew. So much to think about, and like such exciting energy too, because it's nice to know that something is happening and it's not just conjecture anymore. It's not just like we're philosophizing about it. It's like you look at something happens in the stars and it's like, boom, now it's happening right here. Oh, look, the Capitol building, like all of the things. It's like it's not subtle.
Right. It's very obvious.
It's very obvious. It's like, how many more signs do you need to like get the point?
Yeah, it's been a really weird experience to be. I've been walking people towards this time for what, 8, almost 9 years now, and it's no longer you got 6 more months, you got 3 more months, you got 6 weeks. It's not like that anymore. I'm like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Here we are.
It's now.
This is it.
It's now.
Right. Right.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Susan. We kicked Mercury retrograde's butt anyway.
That's right.
You don't tell me what to do. So you guys, if you want to learn more about Susan and book some sessions with her, I will be posting the podcast in a little bit and putting all of her links there. So I highly suggest you go do that. Thank you so much, Susan.
Thanks for having me here, Sarah. So much fun.
So much fun.
Love, love.